Hey Motley crew, welcome to another Tales by Moonlight episode. Should I call them episode? No, I'm gonna call it Tales by Moonlight Sesh. Tales by Moonlight session. And as always, I'm going to set this sacred space, lighting some sage as I set this space as a way of beginning our time here together. There we go. It wasn't lighting. You can listen. And I set the intention that I share my story fully and freely, rooted in honesty, truth, and love. And that the way I share my story does honor to my experience. He said, so in the last Tales by Moonlight session, I talked about just setting the stage, that I was born into ancestral trauma. So that was something I had to contend with as a child. And moving forward, I don't know if I'm going to be doing this chronologically, y'all, but that's how it's coming. It's how it's flowing to me right now. So that's what we're going to do. I was also born to a grieving mother. And the thing about grief is that when you're in your mother's womb and they're experiencing loss or pain, whatever it is, you feel that too, right? Because you're connected to the person who is holding you, because it's not always a mother. I also want to honor those who have uteruses and those who give birth who are not mothers. And in this case, it was my mother, so I will say mother. My mother lost her mother a week before I was born. And in that case, I felt a lot of grief. So I was born into the world to a grieving mother. And if you've experienced grief, if you experience any type of loss, you know how hard it can be to take care of yourself, let alone someone else. And the thing about my culture is that when a person gives birth for the first time, their mother comes, the community comes. Especially the mother, teaches them how to take care of child and teaches them the ways of being a parent while also giving that person time to rest, because giving birth is a physically taxing event. It is painful. It is death in of itself and also birth. And my mother didn't have that. And so not only was I born to a grieving mother, I was born as a twin. So she had two mouths to contend with, two babies, while also dealing with, the suffering and pain of loss. And so I felt that as a child. I felt this juxtaposition of knowing that I was wanted, but also knowing that I was sometimes a burden. In fact, growing up in my family unit, I was given this nickname that I'm not going to share here right now, that was given to me, and it meant two things. It meant empty tin, like someone who has an empty tin head, and someone who makes a lot of noise. And I thought that was just so telling for that kind of nickname to be given to me as a child, because children are loud, y'all. Children want to express, well, not all children. Children want to express, to play, to be, to explore. And who I was in juxtaposition to my twin, who was very quiet, very, very quiet, created within me this idea that I was too much. I was too much. Even though I didn't know what the nickname meant, it was felt in how I was treated. And so I grew up being told that I needed to be seen, not heard. And let's not even talk about being seen. Go to your room. I grew up in a very cold environment. Remember, my parents inherited this lineage of trauma, this lineage of dysfunctionality, And so I was raised in that. I was raised with a very emotionally cold upbringing. There were no hugs. No hugs. And as kids need affection. They need to be able to see unconditional love reflected back at them, and I did not receive any of that. In fact, when it comes to love, I so deeply desired and wanted it because it wasn't given to me in the way that I needed it. I remember going to school, I think it was probably around like 5, 6, and I saw a parent drop off their child, and I heard words I had never heard in my life up until that point. And the words were, "I love you." And that threw me for a spin. It was as if my whole world came spinning down. I think I went through an awakening process. I saw the world in a different way, to be able to see the way that this parent treated that child, "I love you," with a hug. And I realized I didn't have that. I had not heard my parents say, "I love you," even if it wasn't in English, because oftentimes we didn't speak English at home. There was Igbo and Pidgin English. And I still hadn't heard that version of those words. And so then the self-doubt became, if I'm not hearing it, that must be because I am not worthy of love. There was something wrong with me. And so I developed this ideology of that there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't worthy of love at a very young age. Within the home, the way I was treated was, it was full of a lot of strictness, a lot of limitation, criticism, critique, and violence. I remember as a kid, when I would do something, or do something wrong, or not do something enough, I would be met with a onslaught of demeaning words. "You're stupid. You don't know nothing. You're a cow, you're a dog." And so in our land, in my culture, to call someone an animal is like disrespectful, because like animals are less. Animals are considered dirty and they're outdoors. You're a goat. And so I heard these words directed at me from a very young age. And when I didn't do something in the way that it didn't measure up to the expectations, the very, very unrealistic expectations placed on me, not only was it the verbal onslaught, but then there were the beatings, the hitting, the popping, the smacking, the whipping. We were often told to go and get an adequate stick so that we could be whipped with. And if we didn't get one that was adequate enough to be whipped with, like, one would be gotten for me. And I remember just being and living in fear. Fear of my parents. Fear of adults. Fear of the world. Fear of God. A lot of fear was instilled within me. I was raised with the hand of fear, not the hand of love. Unconditional love. So I came to associate pain with love. Even the way I was taught was rooted in violence. I remember, like, my mother would give us these, like, even before I started, like, elementary school, like, she expected excellence. So, like, both of my parents expected academic excellence. Being good was, like, deeply ingrained within my head. You need to be good. And she would give us these like exercises like mathematics, and learn how to do cursive and all of this like stuff like that to, I guess, prep us for school. And I remember sitting down, I'd be sitting next to my brother, my twin, and we'd be timed, and it was as if we were competing. So that level of competition was like ingrained in me, that I had to compete. And if I didn't get a math problem right, or if I didn't get something right, I'd be whipped. Or if he got more, I'd be whipped. So there's always this fear of losing because of violence, fear of failing because of the violence. And of course, like growing up like this and having no one to talk to, sometimes I'd come to school with welts on my body because I dared to talk back, or I didn't do something, or because I fought my brother or a sibling, like because of something that involved just being a child, I would be whipped. And I'd come to school with welts all over my body. In pain. Not talking to anyone about it. Having to keep what was happening inside because it was normalized. I come from a community where many people beat their children. Taught to them by the missionaries who taught their grandparents, who taught their parents, who taught them. This is how you treat a child. Whipping, beating, verbal barrages. Even talking about it now, I feel a bit activated inside. Like that little child, I feel my inner child, I call my inner child little one. I feel so much love and compassion for that little one who had to experience that, who learned that that is what life was about, and had to unlearn that that is not what life is about. And so I grew up with a lot of violence, a lot of abuse. Psychological, mental, physical. And there were also the expectations that were just put on me. I had a lot of pressure on my shoulders as being the firstborn female child. In my culture, that's considered like the second mom. And automatically you just become a second mother. And so there's this expectation that I be good, that I be a example for the siblings who would come after, that I help my parents parent. Because I had a lot of siblings, there was a big family. We have a big family, a lot of kids, it's hard to do and parent things alone, especially if you're in a foreign country. The community system ain't the same. And so I grew up really isolated, feeling a lot of pressure to conform, a lot of pressure to be who I wasn't so I could fit in, so I could be loved. And in that process, I learned and thought that giving love, people pleasing, sacrificing and martyring myself was the way to get love, that the more I gave, that love would come. And of course, that's not how it works. But that is how my family unit functioned. I realized that the more I gave to my parents, the more I fulfilled their expectations, the more I worked hard at school and got the straight A's, the more I did, the more attention I got. And because of this lack of unconditional love, this lack of nurturing, this lack of compassion and kindness, of gentleness and softness that I needed as a kid, this lack of it created the energy of lack within me. And I began to seek externally a place called home. Because home wasn't safe, or soft, or loving. My brother this year brought up a memory. I was like, yeah, I remember you would sometimes come in and you would just be crying on the bed saying our parents don't love us. And I have no memory. My memory from my childhood is very disjointed. There are things I remember, and a lot of it is pain. And there are things I just don't remember. I remember going to bed at night praying to God, why? This cannot be my family. I must be adopted. I used to think, I convinced myself for a while that I was adopted. I was like, this can't be true. Something must have happened. I must have been switched, because what is this? Who are these people? This is not right. This isn't what I signed up for. I remember looking at the sky, just being like, that's home. I don't know what this is, but that is home. I want to go home as a kid. And so growing up in my family unit, where I had a very overbearing and controlling mother, who I knew loved me, but the same was very hot and cold. I really couldn't figure her out. Really had to learn how to be very hypervigilant. And then I had an absent father who very much is a narcissist and was not really there. I remember I would see him maybe once or twice a week, and he was working. But I definitely got the idea he didn't want to have kids. He didn't want us. And so from a young age, I heard from him, I don't expect y'all to take care of me. And I knew at the end of the ... was because I did not take care of you. So that was a caveat. And so I learned very young that I had to take care of myself. Not emotionally, because I didn't have the healthy emotional reflection that I needed to be regulated in emotions, but that I was alone in this world. Because I so deeply didn't want to be alone, I sought connection in everything outside of me. And thus created my escapism and addictive tendencies. This need to just detach myself from the reality that I was in, because reality was just so untenable to what I needed, what I wanted. And so love, I'm getting this feeling, this is about love. Foundations and roots of love. Love was attached to pain and then violence. And then there were the experiences I had with predators, sexual predators, the groomers, because I was so vulnerable, because I was so lacking in healthy love and affection. And they saw it in me. They saw this child, this beautiful child, who all they really wanted was love, was unconditional love. And gave and gave and gave to get it. A child who really wasn't being watched. Not watched as in parents were on my back, because they definitely were tiger parents, very much so, especially regarding academics. But watched as in cared for, the quality of paying attention that goes beyond you're doing what I tell you to do, attention that relates to the emotional state of being. And so from a very young age, I experienced a lot of sexual assaults, a lot of sexual abuse at the hands of several people. And there was a part of me that felt so conflicted because I felt like I deserved it, because I was wanting attention, right? That level of guilt I felt as a kid of like, why is this happening to me? And not having anyone to talk to about it. So I learned very young to detach and dissociate. Not detach and dissociate as in like, well, yes, there's also like going out into the other realm, which is a skill that is beneficial for me as someone who's a spiritualist now, and who's a spiritual channel and psychic medium and dibia. But more of detach and like compartmentalization. I can't deal with what is happening to me. And so I must push it away, lock it up, because if I do deal with it, I will not be able to function. I will not be able to live. I will not be able to continue forward. It was a survival strategy, this compartmentalization of my emotions and what I was actually experiencing. Because I knew there was no one safe around me to talk to about it. No one that I felt could help me without hurting my family. I was very aware that, okay, I could go to the police or something like that, but then my parents might be taken. And I don't want that to happen. And so I was also very self-protective of my family, because I learned from Marie Ink, you don't tell your family secrets. You don't talk about what's going on in the family. You keep that inside. And you know what that does? It creates a lot of shame and guilt. A lot of shame. And so I learned to hold on to things that were not mine to hold on to. They weren't mine to hold on to, and I learned to keep them close. All for the purpose of protection. Protecting the image of family, despite the dysfunctionality. At all odds. Protection of image. So, love became a very murky thing. I didn't understand love, but I so dearly wanted to experience it. And I saw it in everyone and everything outside of me. I saw this pleasure outside of me because I couldn't feel it inside of me. I didn't know how it felt because it wasn't given to me. Our roots and foundations in love really set the stage of how we experience not just relationship, but relationship to self, relationship to the universe. And I'm on the tail end of my Saturn return. My Saturn's in the 4th house. In Aquarius. And during this process, I've been learning how to give love to self. How to create a new inner foundation that is more rooted, where the roots are healthy. Digging up any of the toxic, dysfunctional roots that may exist, so that the tree of who I am can be healthy, tall, and weather the storms of life, with my branches growing up to the sky, connected to the divine. Love. Now, my parents love me, you know, but unconditional love, I don't know. But I knew for myself that I wanted to experience that for me. I wanted to give that to me. And that I deserve to experience and cultivate unconditional love within. Regardless of what was going on out there or who was going on out there. to see if there's anything else I want to say about foundations of love that I experience. No. That's it. That's actually it. Yeah. I think that's where I'm going to stop today in terms of sharing my story. That's where I'm being called to come to a close by spirit. And so I will honor that. So I am thankful for you taking the time, the space, your energy, and engaging with me in this virtual sacredness of Tales by Moonlight. I am so grateful for your presence and being here. And remember to like, share, subscribe if you feel called to in the energy of generosity and love to support. I got ways you can support me financially. I got ways you can support me energetically. Do what you are called to do. And wherever you are in the world, whenever you are, I wish you well.